Since childhood, we have all heard the story of the Jungle Book and Mowgli and have been fascinated by it. But if the Jungle Book is one of your favorite books or movies or fairy tales, you might also want to hear about Dina Sanichar, the real life Mowgli who was born in the jungles of India. Many are unaware that Dina was Rudyard Kipling's inspiration for the iconic book. Dina Sinclair's story began in the 1800s, where he was just a young boy. In 1867, a group of hunters tracked a wolf in the jungles of Uttar Pradesh, India. The wolf led the hunters to a small cave where they found a naked boy huddled in the corner. Upon trying to communicate with the boy, they realized that he could not answer them, nor did they seem to understand their questions. With each passing moment, it became more evident that the wolf boy was a feral child. It was apparent that the wolves raised the boy, and despite the odd nature of his upbringing, he was not the first feral child. Back then, feral children were typical in India, including panther children, chicken children, dog children, and even gazelle children. A common trait with feral children was their inability to walk on two legs. Almost always they walked on all fours and struggled to walk correctly. The hunters who found Dina took him back to their village where they showed him off to the locals. The villagers were both fascinated and terrified by the boy raised by wolves. Next, the hunters took Dina to the Sikandra Mission Orphanage in Agra. They gave him the name Sanikar, which means Saturday in Urdu, because that was the day he was found. Although Dina was given a name and roof over his head, the orphanage was not the best place for him. The staff at the orphanage did their best to care for Dina, but they didn't know how to communicate with him properly. The head of the orphanage felt that even though he considered Dina an imbecile, he showed signs of intelligence and critical thinking. They also didn't know how to care for his physical needs. The staff at the orphanage did their best to civilize Dina, but it was a difficult task. His upbringing in the jungle was the only source of civilization that had made sense to him. He would often howl and bark like a wolf, leading the staff to believe he was trying to communicate with them. A psychologist named Wayne Dennis noticed that feral children like Dina had little to no attachment to human beings and were unaffected by hot and cold temperatures. Dina wore clothing, but he only ate meat and sharpened his teeth on bones like a wolf. At the time, Dina seemed to be unable to speak a language, but his caretakers were hopeful that they could rehabilitate him. As Dina grew older, he began to show more human-like behaviors. He learned how to use the restroom, ate normally, dressed, walked upright, and even started wearing shoes. However, the wolf boy continued to howl and bark, which led people to believe he was still trying to communicate with them. Dina would never learn to speak the human language, yet he developed a sense of understanding and could share in his way with the caretakers of the orphanage. While the caretakers had limited success bonding with Dina, the wolf boy did form a bond with another feral child. The two children had much in common and they quickly became friends. They would often play together and Dina would teach the other boy to hold a cup and drink out of it. It was clear that Dina was more comfortable around other feral children than he was around human beings. That never seemed to change even as Dina grew older. Despite spending the better part of 20 years at the orphanage, Dina made little progress in his transformation to more human behavior. For example, even though he ate from a plate, he would always smell his food first and never seemed to want anything but raw meat. Unfortunately, dressing and walking upright weren't the only characteristics Dina adopted in his time at the orphanage. Oddly enough, Dina picked up the habit of smoking cigarettes from the caretakers. It's not clear why he started smoking, but it's speculated that he may have thought it made him look more human. In any case, smoking took a toll on Dina's health, and he developed a chain-smoking habit and eventually died of tuberculosis in 1895. Sanikar lived a very short life and died at the age of 34.